95% of our life is coming from the programs of life, how to live life that we get in the first 7 years of life.
Maybe it's completely still, just like we experience.
Show you these clips that I put together, and I want you to just be honest with yourself while you're watching these clips. You see this guy doing a backflip, and people are grabbing wires behind him, grabbing his wire on his leg. This guy, he actually falls halfway through his flip. This guy, he tries to bend down and can only go so far. This guy can't even do a backflip in 0G. And this lady grabs a wire, she stands up. Now I'm going to show you all these, compare them side by side. Look, this guy's definitely struggling with a harness wire on the left. This guy on the right's grabbing a cord that you can see attached to his pants. And the guy in the background is swatting at a wire he's trying to grab. Here, the guy on the left falls halfway through his flip. And on the right, this guy is lunging to do a backflip, and if this was 0G, he would just continue to go on, but he doesn't. Here on the left, we see this lady grab a wire as she stands up, or she's just grabbing nothing, maybe. I don't know. On the right, this guy bends down, but is stopped by resistance, and you see his shirt lift up in the back. So, I mean, you just have to be honest with yourself. Is this 0G? Is this really the ISS going on? These are scenes from the movie called Life. It's about the ISS, and you can see how they're floating around with harnesses. I think this is how they're doing it. This lady's hair is just stiff as a board, standing straight up, and that's her proof that they're on the ISS. This lady's hair is bouncing right back in place as she bends down. I've reversed it back and forth so you can see how she moves her head forward, and instead of her hair freely flowing forward, bounces back in place. Same with this Medusa chick here. She's definitely in a 0G plane because she's floating around, but her hair is hairsprayed stiff. Now, if you were just going to keep your hair out of your way, I would pull it back in a ponytail, but she's got it stiff. Now, this is what your hair would do in 0G. Freely move, not stiff as a board like we see on the right here. This is hairspray. This looks exactly like what we see on the ISS. Now, sometimes we do see hair moving freely on the ISS when it's an edited shot, just little clips. But if there's any long periods of shots or live, they definitely do the hairspray, so you can't tell when the plane levels out. But look at this hair freely flowing on the ISS. So both of these are from the ISS, but their hair is doing completely different things. So you come up with your own conclusion here. But this is how I expect people to fly around on the ISS, just corkscrewing and going all crazy, but they always just do this back flip or this front flip, this stiff flip, and then gravity hits. Boom. Whoop. There's that gravity. All right, thanks, guys. Just be honest with yourself. Question everything. Be a critical thinker and be honest with yourself. Truth to the youth.
Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass? For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water.
picture, steroid Santa Claus kicks and deals. It's a long fly ball going back. And the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium. Oh, Simpson just broke this dream's reality wide open.
So what is significant about this video is, number one, it was live to school children. Number two, we have this stuffed animal that is transitioning in on another video channel. And the actor is able to reach up and grab this doll in real 3D space and manipulate this doll with their hands. And so the only way you're going to pull that off is with one technology. And that technology is virtual reality. Next segment, I'm going to show you how NASA grabs objects in 3D space, rotates them around, manipulates them. They can do this with water, with cloth, anything. And the cool thing about it is we can take what they're doing, what they're seeing with their contact virtual reality augmented lenses, and put that on a separate video layer live. So in this clip, they're talking live feed, and we have a astronaut go by us in the background, obviously trying to give it a more realistic, spacey, station busy effect. The only problem is the camera that was supposed to mask this harness out, or the video feed, is not working. And so we see the guy come flying along in a harness on his wires. What? Pretty amazing. But that's not all that goes wrong here. Okay, so you see to the right, this guy's flipping this hat. This hat's actually on another video channel in 3D space. It's virtual reality. They're wearing augmented contact lenses so that they can interact with these 3D objects. Now, in this scene, the guy on the left in the green shirt, he thinks he sees an object in 3D space that's being broadcast to him. So he grabs it and he puts it off to the side. He's looking straight ahead because he's looking at an object rotating in front of him, but the video channel is down that is supposed to show the viewers what we're supposed to see, and so we don't actually get to see the object that he is seeing. And I would just sum this up as a very terrible, bad, horrible day for NASA doing live feeds.
Hey, yo, girl, show them that song I taught you.
I got Jesus, what you got? I got Jesus, what you got? I got Jesus, what you got? Although you're saved or you're not. Feel me?
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
Have you ever dreamed of going up to outer space? Or maybe meeting other beings from another place? Have you ever wondered what it's like on other planets? Then you watch a science show and come to believe you understand it? You feel empowered by the knowledge and you feel enlightened, listening to Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson. But then you wake up and you start to see the obvious. Life is just a lie and this whole world ain't what we thought it was. NASA's missions to the moon were never completed. They just filmed them in a room and people believe it. I used to wonder what it's like to be an astronaut. Now when I see them acting, I can't help but to laugh a lot. They give us cartoons and they claim that we live on a ball, but it's flat and it's not moving or spinning at all. Why you lying to us, man? That's something that we want to know. After that, you're gonna have to pack up all your stuff and go.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
History has been rewritten by winners of wars, the Jesuit order, Khazars, Freemasons, and more. They pulled the veil over our eyes, and it's time to awaken. Through organized indoctrination, our minds have been taken. It's time we take our power back and we rescue our people. The Vatican and the bankers are like Resident Evil. They may have had the greatest plan that was ever concocted, but Illuminati never thought that they'd ever be spotted. They're manufacturing reality all in our heads. They tell us if the earth is flat, then we'll fall off the edge. But if it is a spinning ball, we won't fall off it then. And gravity is our imaginary magic friend. Why is water always flat when unmanipulated? Why are pictures of the earth computer generated? Why you lying to us, man? That's something that we want to know. After that, you're gonna have to pack up all your stuff and go.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
This question is for Chris. What was high school like for you?
Well, it was the 1980s, so the music was different, the hairstyle was different, the clothes we wore were different than today, but probably in 5 or 10 years it'll be the same. And in school, I was just like you, probably all of you there. I tried my best. I didn't always succeed, didn't always do well, but I put my best effort into school. Math and science were kind of my favorite subject. I didn't really like English and reading too much, but I've since grown out of that, and I enjoy reading now. And I played a lot of sports. And all of that happened in a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now. What? And all of that happened in a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now. What? And all of that happened in a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now.
What's your favourite astronomical feature?
So it's got to be, I think it's those star-forming pillars that the Hubble Space Telescope took this truly amazing picture of. Which is a little strange because actually the main thing I research on is galaxies, but actually in terms of beautiful pictures, that really is stunning. And it's just because it's such a beautiful object. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's an astronomical object. You know, if I'd seen that picture hung up in an art gallery, I'd have said that's a really pretty picture. There's a bright star just out of the picture which is kind of blazing down on it and is eroding these pillars away, and so you see these pillars of gas and then little stars just starting to pop out from them. So from a scientific point of view it's fascinating, but fundamentally it's because it's a very pretty picture.
I think my favourite you're looking back in time.
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going. Money is a good thing. If you want to buy new things, new rockets, instead of keep doing the same thing over, then it's going to cost more money. And other things need more money too. So having achieved what the president wanted us to do, and then what thousands, millions of people in America, and millions of people around the world. You know, when we toured around the world after we came back, the most fascinating observation was signs that said, we did it. Not just us, not just America, but we, the world, different countries. They felt like they were part of what we were able to do. And that made us feel very good.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me. And what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take into your hands a plan, your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the hours it takes to get some power. Don't be f***ing sour, take a cold shower. Scream until you're louder, work until you're prouder. And f*** all the doubters, they're just your downers. I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off at these fucking clowns who were all taught they deserve an ounce. It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown. I'm just telling you to fight for your dreams, but it's not what it seems. Man, it's hard to be seen when everybody wants to be king. Yeah, they all wanna ring, yeah, we all wanna be free. So show me what you got, what you bring, how you fight in the ring, how you take a fucking swing. Do you got heart, are you mean? Got some scars, got some needs, are you willing to go bleed? I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off at these fucking clowns who were all taught they deserve an ounce. It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown. I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off at these fucking clowns who were all taught they deserve an ounce. It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown. I don't really know what comes next. I'm just doing my best, even though I'm so stressed out. Everything just feels like a test that I fail, so depressed when I can't seem to get out. But something deep inside won't let me quit. I swear that I'm inspired by all this shit. Tell me that I can and I won't. That's what guides me the most. Your lies, I'll do what I want.
NASA's latest space dreams came crashing down in Central Australia today. A giant helium balloon packed with expensive scientific instruments lost its moorings in high winds. As Anna Henderson reports, it cut a swathe through an airfield and sent onlookers running for their lives.
As the giant helium balloon was launched into the air, its precious cargo became a high-speed projectile. Unexpected strong winds pushed the 2-ton platform of scientific instruments off course and onto a path of destruction.
Greetings, fellow humans. Well, this is my first ever attempt at making a legitimate YouTube video, so bear with me as I muddle through this. For starters, let's get the intros out of the way. I'm the Biker Scout. And a little background about me, other than the obvious Star Wars reference, I ride a motorcycle full time. But I'm a professional designer and photographer first. I've been using Photoshop since 2.0, is that 1990-ish? So I know my way around a computer and photo editing software. And I just had to make this video in response to the crap that NASA's been feeding us as scientific proofs for the general archives and public domain, when in fact they're employing very amateurish photo retouchers. I'm a stickler for details and an avid pixel peeper, and I'll tell you what, if I was employed by NASA, the fake images would be flawless. There are so many absurd photographic anomalies in their archives, but I'm only going to focus on a couple that have all been released within the last few months here in 2015. So let's get started. Alright, let's go straight to the horse's mouth here and download the image right off of NASA's website. And open it into Photoshop. Okay. Now, one thing that you should know is there are all kinds of different blacks. So, in order to see what's actually black or slightly black, you invert the image. Now, in doing this, you reveal some very interesting characteristics about our perfectly round sphere globe Earth here, which we're told it's an oblate spheroid and not perfectly round. But Photoshop round tool selection marquee thing here will disagree. Now, as I make a selection here, and let me scoot this back on the screen. Okay, I'm not exact size, but it doesn't matter for this because I'll show you why here in a minute. The marquee tool has a very distinct stair-step shape in the pixel definition. And as you can see here, NASA's image, as you toggle around between the feathered edge, that the stair-step matches perfectly with an exact sphere. That means they used Photoshop to delete the background. But they didn't do a very good job. As you can see here, there's a bunch of little random pixel anomalies floating in space. The most obvious that nobody really saw until you invert the image is up here. This is a strip of blue sky cloud that somebody forgot to erase. Now, this is very obvious when you invert the image back. And look at that. That is blue water, people. And it should not be out in space unless this was a retouched image. This is not an official photograph of Earth from 1 million miles away, as they're saying. There's a lot of things about this image that I don't really like in terms of clarity and definition that just can't be taken from a 4 megapixel camera from 1 million miles away. I mean, the detail's astonishingly ridiculous. I mean, you can clearly make out the Central Valley in California. You know, you can see land details. 4 megapixels, 1 million miles away. I don't know. All right, moving on. Let's check out Commander Scott Kelly's photograph of the Earth, Moon, Venus transit. Really beautiful image, but let's see what we can find here. He's a Nikon user, as are all the astronauts. That will become of importance here later on. I'll mention that in a minute. First, let's open it and do what we did before. We'll invert the image, and we'll see if there's any strange things afoot. My suspicion was the lens flare. It looked too Hollywoodish to me. It looked too much like a plug-in or a filter. But I was blown away when I saw this really glaringly obvious cover-up of something. Now, to me, it looks like they just took the brush tool and blocked something out by just selecting black. But they didn't use the eyedropper tool to sample the nearest color black. So they're, like I said, blacks aren't all the same once you start looking at it as an inverted image. It looks black. Now they may have blocked something out for artistic reasons, but as soon as you do that, it's a manipulated image, and you can't claim it as authentic. You know, it's now a composite. You know, you've edited it, you've retouched it, and I think they're obligated to mention when they do. and not always in the obfuscated terms of mosaic and composite as NASA always seems to do. All right, let's check this image out here. Everybody might remember this one. This is the famous moon transiting the Earth in front of NASA's Discover satellite that's 1 million miles away, parked out in geosynchronous orbit. Okay, let's right-click this bad boy, put it in Photoshop. It's a GIF for animated purposes, but the cool thing about GIFs is you can actually open them up in Photoshop and you can see all the layers that the GIF is made out of. Kind of cool. So let's zoom in here and check it out. Alright, you start activating layers and the moon comes into frame. But what is this? Why is the leading edge of the moon green? Obviously, that shouldn't be like that. So, what's going on here is NASA has south parked a dim moon image because they said it's the dark side of the moon. So obviously we think the image needs to appear darker, but it's passing right in front of the Earth, in front of the sun, full moon, so that means it should be bright, really bright, bright as the clouds. In fact, there's more green fringing. Keep turning on these layers. Obviously they were able to delete the green fringing on the leading edge as it left the frame, but they were pretty lazy here as it exited the frame. More green fringing. Now, it seems to me like they just used some green screen software and plucked or tried to get a nice clean image, but they couldn't because here's a bunch of pixel noise all over the place. That means nobody actually did anything. They clicked a button and they tried to use the algorithm to remove the green. Didn't do a very good job of that. Now, there's a lot of problems with this, image that people have noted already. The clouds obviously don't move, and if this was taken over a period of time, clouds move pretty fast. But the one thing that I really dislike about this image is the fact that who's got the real moon? Commander Scott Kelly has a picture of the moon from the space station, and he's 237 miles away from his vantage point. Now, or 237,000 miles away from his vantage point. And this Discover satellite image is 1 million miles away, minus 237 miles the distance between the Earth and the moon. Yet it looks like a dim, dead rock. If I were to be asked which one is real, well, it looks like Commander Scott Kelly's picture is real, and the NASA one, which they're claiming is real, clearly isn't. It's cut and paste and a real poor job at that. Here's one last image showing a famous Earth shot from the International Space Station. It's beautiful. NASA uses Nikon, like I said before, so Commander Kelly has graciously taken a selfie of his own camera, so we see what model it is. We can even see that there's a massive fisheye lens on this thing. But knowing those two things is key ingredient in fixing the photos. So in Photoshop, there's a lens distortion correction filter you can use. You just plug in what kind of camera you have, what kind of lens you have, boom, voila, it flattens the image out and corrects the distortion, whether it's pincushion or barrel distortion or even fisheye. The other thing that's going on in this photo here is everybody will point out there's a giant hot spot fairly close to the Earth. If the sun was in fact 92 million miles away, the Earth would be lit in a broad, illuminated, wide swath of light and not just like a light bulb as we have here. That's just something interesting I've noticed. But anyway, that's it. That's my YouTube analogy wrap-up video of some things that I've really had a problem with, and I noticed not a lot of people were addressing in their YouTube videos, whether they're flat earthers or NASA conspiracy people or moon debunkers. It's the photography that really gives away, their deceit. And I think more ought to be brought up about this. I think they're sloppy, they're lazy, and they're hiding something. What that something is, I don't know. Can we reach any higher than low Earth orbit? Or can we even go to space? Can we go to the moon? Is the Earth flat? Is the sun really close? There's so many ridiculous questions, but when you just look at the photographic evidence, you know something is being hidden. And to me, that raises, a several trillion dollar question. Does NASA owe the taxpayer a bunch of money back for fraud, every man, woman, and child in America, for lying to us this whole time? Can we take, them seriously as a beacon of science, when everybody in their own camp can't seem to get the facts together? NASA showing us a perfect circle image of Earth. Neil deGrasse Tyson is saying, no, the Earth isn't round, it's an oblique spheroid, more pear-shaped. But that's an official NASA photo, and it's perfectly round. But, it's only perfectly round if you use the Photoshop selection tool. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I think this begs further discussion.
And now we come to the great man himself, a man history records as being instrumental in the creation of America's public education system. Horace Mann was an American educator who served as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, part of the American Congress. Horace Mann was the key reformer of the education system at the time. In 1837, he became the head of the newly created Board of Education in Massachusetts, where he began the work that would eventually earn him the title as the Father of American Public Education. After reading through the educational models of different countries, Mann finally hears about a particularly successful style that had been developed in Prussia, which is now modern-day Germany. The Prussian system had shown to be such a success for the government's purposes that, accompanied by a few other educators, Horace Mann travels to Germany to investigate. Upon their return to the United States, they lobbied heavily to have the Prussian model adopted.
All in favor, say aye.
Interest in Prussia had also been growing in the northern half of the continent. Around this time, the Canadian Superintendent of Schools, Egerton Ryerson, traveled to Prussia in search of a new model of education. His journeys also included visiting Horace Mann in Massachusetts to further examine the system he would eventually adopt. George Brown, the editor of Toronto's Globe newspaper, was even quoted saying that Ryerson had successfully imported Prussian education into Ontario. During the next 30 years or so, a whole line of American dignitaries came to Germany to earn degrees. Interestingly enough, those who earned degrees in Germany came back to the United States to staff all the major universities. By 1900, all the PhDs in the United States were trained in Prussia. As the first secretary of the State Board of Education, Horace Mann promoted his new concept that the state is the father of children. He stressed that it was the responsibility of the state to ensure that education was provided for the child. A very noble idea, of course, but what exactly did he mean by that? And how did he define education? It seems like a very broad subject. It is a very broad subject. Education encompasses all of human history and all the knowledge we have gathered during that time. Not to mention, and perhaps most importantly, what we as human beings learn over our lifetime on a personal level. Horace Mann's 10th annual report in 1846 led to the first state law that made it mandatory for children to go to school. It was during that year that he supported the governor of Massachusetts in adopting the Prussian model of education for the entire state. How did he do that? The governor of the time, Edward Everett, as it turns out, was the very first to receive a PhD from, can you guess where? That's right, Prussia. From then on, it spread very quickly. Just after Everett installed the Prussian model in the state of Massachusetts, the governor of New York set up the very same method in 12 New York schools. Horace Mann's sister, Elizabeth Peabody, of the Peabody Foundation, saw to it that right after the Civil War, the Prussian system that was then being taught in the northern states was integrated into the conquered South. By 1900, most of the compulsory schooling laws that implemented the new system had been passed. From then on, every American child grew up under the Prussian system. So what exactly was the Prussian education system that everyone thought was so amazing that it just had to be adopted throughout the free world? To give you just a bit of background, in the 18th century, the Kingdom of Prussia, which is now modern-day Germany, was among the first countries of the world to introduce free and compulsory education. After the Prussians were defeated by Napoleon in 1806, it was decided that the reason why the battle was lost was that the Prussian soldiers were thinking for themselves in the battlefield instead of following orders. To make sure that this couldn't happen again, a new 8-year system of schooling was created. This new system provided not only the skills needed for the early industrialized world, such as reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also a strict education that taught duty, discipline, respect for authority, and the ability to follow orders. Elite children destined for higher offices went on to attend private schools, while the rest of the population had no access to the secondary education. They were destined for the working class. Through this new system, the Prussian court tried to create social obedience in the citizens through indoctrination. Every individual had to become convinced at the core of their being that the king was just, his decisions were always right, and the need for obedience paramount. In truth, the entire purpose of the system was to instill loyalty to the crown and to train young men for the military and bureaucracy. To do this, it was necessary to squeeze out all independent thinking from the masses. Influencing this new system from the beginning was Prussian philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte. Combining John Locke's view that the children are a blank slate and Rousseau's ideas on how to write on that slate, Prussia established an educational system that was considered scientific in nature. An important part of the Prussian system was that it defined for the child what was to be learned, what was to be thought about, and how long to think about it. In order to have an efficient policy-making class and a subclass beneath it, it was believed that one had to remove the power of most people to make sense out of the available information. In other words, critical thinking had to be done away with. Now, if you're wondering why the average person doesn't know that the North American education system is based directly on the Prussian model, it might just be because its original purpose was not designed for the good of the individual, but for the good of the government. The philosophy of Johann Fichte directly influenced the creation of the Prussian model of schooling, as he is quoted saying, "The schools must fashion the person, and fashion him in such a way that he simply cannot will otherwise than what you wish him to will." With quotes like these, you can see why his involvement is not well known. Education should aim at destroying free will, so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. When this technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need of armies or policemen. In 1807, in a Berlin occupied by Napoleon, Johann Fichte gave a series of famous addresses to the German nation. Fichte spoke of the superiority of German people above all others. The content of these speeches was a catalyst for the Prussian education system and German nationalism. In other earlier works, he calls Jews a state within a state that would, quote, undermine the German nation. He openly expressed a desire to expel Jews from Germany. Fichte had a deep influence on the rise of the Third Reich, and continues to be deemed, quote, the spiritual father of modern neo-Nazism. Which begs the question, why would the father of American education make it a law that every child spend their youth in a system created by the father of neo-Nazism? Historians reflect that one of the greatest social factors that allowed a man like Hitler to rise to power was that the German people had been bred from birth to respect authority above all else and accept it without question. Which begs another question. If the entire population of North America is raised in a system adopted from pre-Nazi Germany, what are we setting ourselves up for?
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people.
I'm here to talk to you about the problem of slavery. It didn't end in the 1860s. It's a social malady that's with us today, and it's increasing in its scope and virulence. The desire to enslave our fellow man is unfortunately intrinsic to the human character. It has been with us since the beginning of time, on every continent and in virtually every culture, from ancient Egypt to Babylon to Greece and Rome, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the United States. Germany and Japan openly practiced widespread slavery only 50 years ago, and the Soviet Union until less than a decade ago. China even today. It's a disease of our human nature, and yet people are under the impression that it no longer exists. I say to you that in a subtle form, it exists in America today, and it's becoming less subtle and more manifest. Madison Avenue has just cleaned it up a little bit, dressed it up in new words. The slave master is now Big Brother, someone to protect you, someone to confide in. But it's all the same. He owns your life. This may sound far-fetched, but I think I can prove it. When the IRS allows you a tax deduction, they and their congressional collaborators and the media call it a tax subsidy. In other words, they designate it as a gift to you, a subsidy. The only way they could conceive this terminology is by presupposing that they, i.e. the government, own all the money. Their view is that they're entitled to it all. That which they allow you to keep is their compassionate and generous gift to you. How can this be? You create the money by your efforts, your sacrifice, your creativity, your risk-taking. So how can it belong to them? It's very simple. They own you. They own everything you produce, your money, your house, your thoughts and ideas, your children. If you go to a foreign country to work, you still have to pay the U.S. income tax. You could dig a hole in the middle of Siberia and they'd be entitled to a cut of your wages because in their minds, under their law, they own you. They create arcane and esoteric laws to criminalize you. You may try, but you can't obey them. You can't even understand them without a lot of professional help. You have to run around slavishly collecting little pieces of paper, receipts, 7 years of detailed financial records because you might be called on to give an account of yourself to the big boss man. And if you've made a mistake, he can take everything you have. He loves it that way.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
People so caught up in this race stuff and they worry about black and white that they forgetting that white people in slavery too. All of us Americans are in slavery. If you have a lease or you have to pay your rent or you have to pay your loan, if you got to pay anybody else, you are in slavery. If you do your work and you go to work and you come from work and you have to pay somebody else, you're in slavery. Like, you are enslaved to your credit, your rent, your bills, your DP&L, your water. You're in slavery to all that stuff. Are you able to get rid of it? Or do you have to pay it? Once you get older and you become an adult, once you're not a kid anymore, you are a slave unless you are rich. Now there's ways that you can play and you can be on a better side, but for most of the Americans who work a regular 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, whatever hours you work, if you have to go to work for 40 hours a week and you're doing something that you really truly do not want to do, and you have to pay somebody to live your life, to live a basic decent lifestyle that any American, any person in this world is entitled to, then you are a slave. And you see the white people go to work, black people go to work, Mexicans go to work, Chinese people go to work on a daily basis. The daily basis, you have to go to work for another person. So you are in slavery. So don't be worried about who hates you. Worry about doing you. Worry about doing your own business, taking care of what you got to take care of. Just because somebody else out there and they're getting harassed and stuff like that, yeah, you fight against it. You fight against it. But don't think that it's just us. It's not just the black people. It's the world. The world is going through this shit.
Hi everybody, and thank you for viewing this video. My name is Isabel, and today what I'd like to go through is the idea and concept of freedom. Now, a few days ago I was driving against the traffic and I was looking at the opposite side of the road and looking at all those cars heading towards the city to go to work at something like 7:30 in the morning. Anyway, so as I was driving along, I noticed how they were going really slowly, and it seemed like they were almost chained together, these people. You know, they were all heading in the same direction really slowly and really automatically, like robots. It kind of resembled to me a sense of slavery. If you contrast that to ancient slavery, and if you look at, you know, how the slaves were tied together with rope or with chains and were whipped by Romans and things like that, you kind of realize that our modern day society isn't too far off from that. Although we don't get the direct abuse, obviously we don't get the whipping and things like that, we do, in a sense, we kind of think that we do have freedom in the sense that we can, you know, switch on our iPod, or, you know, put on the music in our radio, or listen to the breakfast show or something like that. In that aspect, we believe that we actually have a sense of freedom, and that we're in like modern day vehicles and things like that. We're kind of in the same way chained together and heading towards the same direction, you know, because we have work to do. Now, if we decide not to take that path, then we won't have money. And if we don't have money, we won't be able to survive in this society. We won't be able to buy food. We won't be able to do this and that. We won't have the luxury of life. So it's not really an option to quit work and just sit there and, you know, get payment from the government or something, because that's not very, it's not a very efficient way of living. Now, my point is that if you kind of take a distance from this, if you kind of step backwards and you have a look at why we work in the first place, very few people can come up with very good reasons why we actually work. I mean, what is this human obsession with keeping busy all the time, or with kind of like doing something? What is this human obsession with not being able to just live a life in sort of nature, you know, not having to build all of this stuff? Because if we didn't have to build all of these hotels, all of these roads, all of these cars, all of these things, then we wouldn't have to work in the first place. And why is it that we need to do that kind of stuff? Why is it that we actually need, you know, to keep on getting better and better, you know, keep on improving technology, keep on doing this and that? What's the point? I mean, what is the point? You're only here for about 100 years, if you're lucky. You're only here for a limited time period. And unfortunately, the moment you're born into this society, you're sort of brainwashed in order to, you know, you need to take the following steps. You need to, you know, first you get born, then you go to kindergarten, then you go to school, you spend 12 years at school, then you go to hopefully university, then you go to work. By then you're brainwashed. By then you're integrated into this society. You're doing exactly what the society expects you to do, to live as a citizen of this society and to be a slave to the workforce, to devote your entire life, to devote your entire time, your time away from your family, so that you can be out there to help people construct bigger and bigger buildings, bigger and bigger bridges, and better technology. But why? What for? I mean, what is there to really achieve? There's nothing to really achieve out there. It's actually, work in a sense is diminishing our living conditions. It's diminishing people's ability to spend time with their families, which is what is more important. It's diminishing the quality of relationships. If you look at the divorce rate, most of that is because there's money issues, or there's problems with, you know, couples not spending enough time together, etc. It's not directly due to the fact that human beings are bad. It's due to the fact that this society expects us to sacrifice our entire lives from age 0, maybe age 3, up to age 65 to do stuff for the society. I mean, if you think about it, whoever really wants to do that? Isn't there more to this life than just to work and just to travel in the morning to, you know, to and fro with the traffic? I mean, there has to be something more. There has to be greater meaning, because person gets up to 65 and then they realize, What was that for? Like, after 65 years, they realized that was a waste of time. And now I have my freedom, but now I don't know what to do with it because I need to be busy in order to, you know, have a normal functioning mind. You know, they lose a sense of self because they're so consumed with, you know, traveling to work or working for a particular company. They get so obsessed about, you know, following the exact criteria that, you know, people around them are following. You know, to first, you know, go to school, then go to work. It's kind of like sheep, you know, blind sheep. One sheep's going that way, the other one's following because they don't know what they're doing. So they're just using that as a model. But you really need to question whether all of this is actually worth it, whether it's actually worth your entire life to sacrifice to a particular company or to particular work, to a particular work type.
Now to an extraordinary look inside the world of Apple, the company that makes those gadgets that millions of us love.
We're most interested in the people who build their complex gadgets, one tiny piece at a time. As a whole, it's an incredibly complex process, but look at the individuals, and you see mostly teenagers from the countryside, 17, 18-year-olds far away from very poor homes.
So this is home.
They live in a dorm with 7 strangers, spend 6 days a week repeating the same task again and again. Fatigue and boredom are common in any factory, but this one is surrounded by suicide nets. They are everywhere, a horrifying reminder of 18 workers who jumped from the buildings here at Foxconn City in the past few years. The suicide rate in this massive company is lower than average in China, but after people jumped in such a sobering cluster, Foxconn opened a counseling center and raised starting wages about 25 cents an hour.
I wonder, though...
Words. The slave master is now Big Brother, someone to protect you, someone to confide in. But it's all the same. He owns your life. This may sound far-fetched.
The United States of America, home to 300 million people. Each of us, assuming that if we obey the law and mind our own business, there's no reason for anyone to pay much attention to us. That's what we might think, but we would be wrong.
Records are being created of activities that used to be wholly private.
There are a lot of companies that you've never heard about, but they heard something about you.
Detailed personal information is being collected every day and used in ways we could never imagine.
Most Americans are in your database somewhere, right?
Also billions of transactions.
Internet searches are being recorded.
They keep everything. Your political leanings, your religious leanings, your medical concerns, your sexual concerns.
Driving habits are being monitored.
Vehicle speed, engine speed, whether the brakes are on or off.
Employees are surveilled.
He's heading back to the shop right now.
Shoppers are observed, recorded, and analyzed.
That's an alert right there.
And personal phone calls?
I was under the impression that nobody could steal my cell phone records. As it turns out, I was very, very wrong.
We are living through a revolution, a surveillance revolution empowered by technology.
Literally within 5 to 7 minutes, we've identified the individual.
It's technology that can be put to good use to stop terrorists and solve crimes. But if information falls into the wrong hands, or it's just plain wrong, it can ruin lives.
I went without a job for months.
Tough 4 months?
Very, very difficult for me.
From implantable chips...
They make a small incision in your arm.
...to data mining companies.
Well, how secure is that database?
We take an unprecedented look at the powerful business of personal information.
We're not mining through the personal lives of innocent Americans.
The government is now working with big business to take surveillance and information gathering to levels that were once the stuff of science fiction.
Big Brother, if allowed to happen, will happen. And our job as responsible human beings in society is to make sure that that does not occur.
Dr. Amanda Reeve, a Fresno, California OBGYN, had never heard of ChoicePoint. But ChoicePoint had heard of her. It's ChoicePoint's business to know about you. The company maintains a database that has information on virtually every U.S. citizen. Its trove of personal data, an estimated 17 billion records, includes phone numbers, addresses, credit reports, property records, bank accounts, insurance policies, and social security numbers. It sells this information to major corporations, non-profit organizations, and the government. ChoicePoint's detailed information is used by its clients to conduct employee background checks, direct marketing, and criminal investigations. It's also valuable to thieves intent on stealing our identity. Dr. Reeve didn't know any of that on the day she first heard the name on the radio.
Economic data out today showed double the...
I heard a short piece of the news, something about this place called ChoicePoint. They had some sort of a breach of information. People's identities had been stolen.
In 2005, the Alpharetta, Georgia company discovered it had given accounts and therefore access to its database to identity thieves posing as legitimate businesses. Reeve found out she was at risk when she received this letter.
The letter talked about how my information may have been given out accidentally, and some people might have taken that information and they could apply for credit. Maybe I should call this number. The aftermath continues. I cannot apply for credit. I don't give information on the phone. It's nerve-wracking because that information is out there and I don't have any control over which way it goes, how it gets used.
"95% of our life is coming from the programs of life, how to live life that we get in the first 7 years of life. That's why poor people stay poor and rich people stay rich. The movie The Matrix is not science fiction, it's a documentary. Every human, and this is a fact, every human first 7 years is download, hypnosis. The brain of a child under 7 is in a lower vibrational frequency. When you put wires on a person's head, you read electroencephalograph, reading brain activity. A child below 7 has a lower vibration than consciousness. It's called theta. Theta is imagination. Oh, that's how kids play a tea party with mud pies, but to them it's a real thing. A kid rides a broom, it's a horse. That's theta, imagination. Theta is also hypnosis. And the idea is this: before you can become conscious, if you don't have any programs, what are you going to be conscious of? So nature makes the first 7 years. What kind of programs are required to live on this planet? I say, how do you get them? Theta is hypnosis. You just watch. You watch your parents, you watch your siblings, and your community, because you have to learn how many 100,000 rules. Think about it. Just to be a functional member of a family and a functional member of a community, there are rules. Teach an infant these rules. It's like, oh, you don't have to. First 7 years, they observe it and just download it. Look, this is not new. I mean, there's the famous book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And basically said you come from a poor family and you could struggle your whole life and try to get rich, but you're not going to make it. And if you come from a rich family, you could be stupid your whole life and make it. Not because it was thinking, but it was unconscious behavior that was downloaded from rich families into kids, which is unconscious. So they're making the right moves unconsciously. If they engage their conscious mind, then they look stupid, but it's unconscious. And that's the same thing with poor people. Poor people have beliefs from the family. Oh, you can't make it, life's a struggle, things are hard, who do you think you are? And if that's the program you get, then 95% of the day you will sabotage yourself. And that's why poor people stay poor and rich people stay rich, because the programming. 95% of our life, this is a fact, comes from those programs in the subconscious. Every day, only about 5% of their life are you using conscious, which is creative. 5%.
So your life is being lived, even though you think you're living your life.
Exactly, and you don't see it because it's called subconscious, below conscious. And the Jesuits, for 400 years, they were boasting. People didn't understand. They say, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. They've been saying that for 400 years because they knew 7 years was the program period. And 95% of your life after that will be whatever that program is. So you don't have to try and think about what happened. I just say, look at your life. The things you like that come into your life come in because you have a program that supports them. But anything you struggle with, work hard at, put a lot of effort into making it happen, why you're working so hard. Inevitably, you have a program that doesn't support that conclusion, and you're trying to override the program. So you don't need to do a lot of strength and psychology stuff. You just look at your life and say, where am I struggling? Because wherever you're struggling, inevitably is a program in your subconscious that does not support that destination you've been looking for. The conscious mind is creative and can learn in any number of ways. Read a self-help book, go to a lecture, listen to this program, and conscious mind's going to get some awareness. And I go, yeah, but subconscious mind doesn't learn that way. I go, right, it doesn't. Subconscious mind learns in two fundamental ways naturally. Hypnosis, which is the first 7 years. And after age 7, how do you put new programs in? Repetition. Practice. You want to drive a car, you didn't learn how by just getting in the seat and put the key in. You had to practice driving the car. You want to learn the alphabet. How many times did you go from A to Z? Try to go to A to Z before you can complete it. And once you completed it, you didn't have to go back and do it again. So 2 phases. You want to train the subconscious mind. Hypnosis, repetition. I like the last one because there's a new phrase that's bandied about called fake it till you make it. Meaning, if you're not a happy person, I say, you want to be a happy person? Then repeat all the time, I'm happy, I'm happy. I say, well, you don't look happy or anything. He said, no, who am I talking to? By repetition, I'm talking to subconscious. If subconscious gets, I am happy, and 95% of your life comes from that subconscious, there will be a point once the subconscious got, I am happy, you don't have to say it again.
Okay.
It'll be automatic.
And that's why we see people do affirmations and gratitude journals and stuff, because if you do that daily...
It's repetitive. That's the secret part. Look, putting a sticky note on the refrigerator is more like a suggestion, but it's not a repetition. So it doesn't work very well. But you have to do, repetition is a habit. It's making habit. So you got to do something religiously in the sense of repeating it to make it work.
In case you find these videos useful, please share them with others so we can help them too. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos and updates. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Peace.